Congratulations, you have found the Lambcast, the official podcast of the large association of movie blogs, also known as the Lamb. The Lamb is the largest collective of online movie blogs and podcasts with 2,000 members and counting. Every week on the Lambcast, various members of the Lamb community get together to talk about our favorite subject, movies. So bookmark the Lamb and follow us on social media. Be sure to join us each week to hear a lively discussion of films and movie-related talk from our members. Join the flock at largeassmovieblogs.com.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to summer. Technically, summer doesn't begin until the third week of June, but don't tell that to the movie studios who look to the summer season to bring in the revenue that they need to survive. In the next few weeks, we get a new franchise entry from the Planet of the Apes franchise, the Mad Max franchise, Bad Boys, The Strangers, Garfield, Inside Out, and more. This week sees the launch of a standalone film that could be a franchise, but for now seems to be poised to be a summer fling that starts the season off with a tub of popcorn and a soda the size of Rhode Island. Loosely based on the 80s TV series, The Fall Guy features a movie stuntman doing a search for a missing star and running into all kinds of trouble. Directed by David Leitch, a former stunt double and coordinator himself, the film is maybe less about the plot and more about the stunts than anything else. With us this week are some lambs that do all their own stunts. Let's meet them and see if anybody really can double for them. I'll probably catch hell for referring to her this way, but the sexy bacon of this week's show is Jeanette Ward from The Mundane Adventures of a Fangirl.
I'm all set, ready to go. Just put myself out with a fire extinguisher after doing a 60-foot firefall into the water. So I'm good. I'm ready to go. She's
prepared. Excellent. I'm not sure if he's still seeing unicorns or not, but he will join us regardless. Brian Eggert from Deep Focus Review.
Yeah, I've had so many breakaway glasses broken over my head that I am still seeing unicorns.
And finally, despite the fact that he's not the hero of the story, he still wants to look cool in front of the other lambs. Howard Kasner from Pop Art.
Yeah, sorry it's late. I had to do some Jason Bourne shit.
The Fall Guy follows a stuntman, played by Ryan Gosling, working on his ex-girlfriend, Emily Blunt's, directorial debut action film, only to find himself involved in a conspiracy surrounding the film's lead actor, Aaron Taylor Johnson. We'll start with some general impressions and then move on to specifics, but let's stay spoiler-free for a while, and we'll give everyone a warning when the spoiler wall falls down. Jeanette, let's start with you. What were your general impressions of The Fall Guy?
It was interesting because for the first, honestly, maybe the first two acts, I found myself thinking, am I enjoying this or am I not enjoying this? I can't really tell. There are parts of this I really like, and there are parts of this I really don't like. And then I hit the third act, and I was like, you know what? Yeah, I did enjoy this. I'm enjoying this part in particular. And then throughout the third act, was like, boy, I tell you, they better show all the real stunt guys over the credits of this movie. And I don't think I'm spoiling anything by saying they do, and that's great. So, yeah, overall, good.
With a little bit of uncertainty there.
A little bit of uncertainty in the beginning. Maybe I'll say it started off a little rocky for me, but overall, the cast was super charming, I think, and the stunts were incredible. So, yeah, I have more to say when we get to more details. But,
all right.
Overall, great.
Brian, how about you? Did you have an initial impression that was not favorable, or did you start off in a pretty good mood?
I was pretty mixed throughout. I think that it's so light and breezy and entertaining that you can totally enjoy it, for that breeziness. But I felt the story a little slight and the characters a little slight. And I think when it was over, I just didn't think about it at all. It was just, okay, I watched that and it was pleasant enough. And I didn't really care about anything that was happening. And I didn't find the stunts particularly impressive. I thought there was way too much CGI for my taste for a movie about stunt performers. But, to echo Jeanette's point, the stars are very charismatic and charming, and they have a good rapport. And, I had fun with it. I rated it, positively, like on Rotten Tomatoes, but it's not like a full endorsement for me.
It apparently is not going to be hitting your top 10 at the end of the year.
It will not hit my top 10, no.
Howard, tell us your thoughts.
Well, it didn't really work much for me. The reason being is that, for various reasons, it's trying so hard to be meta and postmodern, which normally I love, but it's so unoriginally meta and postmodern. Everything they do has been done in other films much, much better. And so I'm just, when they're doing this meta stuff, I'm just sort of cringing, or just bored, because I said, well, I've seen this too often. They're not doing anything really. Normally, since I wasn't that engaged and didn't find it all that great, of course, toward the end, I'm going, this story really makes no sense. And I don't know if this is a reveal. If it is, cut it out. That if the central character had done nothing, the forensics would have cleared him probably in no time at all. So, and I also agree. I don't think the stunts were that interesting or impressive. Give me Jackie Chan, who really does do his own stunts. Here, yeah, I thought they were also somewhat unimaginative, and stunts I've seen a million times. There were a couple of exceptions, but it's a movie that, needed to be more the Thin Man and was just, a weak postmodern meta entry.
All right, weak postmodern.
Can I very quickly, just, before I lose this train of thought, to follow up on what they both said about the stunts being, that none of them are things we haven't seen before, but I wonder, and forgive me for maybe putting words in the director's mouth, but I wonder if maybe that was on purpose because David Leitch comes from a stunt background. If he was like, I'm not trying to invent new stunts no one has ever seen before. What I would like to do is showcase stunt performers in the stunts that are run-of-the-mill, or stunts we see in all action movies, or regular stunts, but just done very well. I might be reaching. I'm probably reaching.
Well,
but I
issue
wonder
does
if
go
he
beyond
thought
that.
about that just based on his background. It seems like to highlight stunt performers maybe just doing the regular ones well might have been something he was thinking about.
Well,
Sure.
my issue isn't so much that, though there could be that, is that I don't think they were particularly well shot or well filmed. As I said, give me Jackie Chan any day, who really knows how to shoot these things and really knows how to do stunts. And, this is his first film, isn't it? I could be wrong.
No, he's made quite a few.
Oh, that's right.
But I would say that about a lot of his, honestly. If you're a stunt guy, let me see all the stunts better. I feel like I've said that about a couple of his.
Yeah. And give me something more.
I think they're edited really choppily, so they're not showcasing the stunt. Yeah. Maybe the one exception is a stunt near the end, which we can talk about in the spoiler section. But yeah, I agree with you, Howard. They're not shot very well. This is not like a really attractive looking movie where I'm dazzled by, a long take or something like that. I think,
and it should be.
It should be, absolutely. There was, in fact, one of the most impressive shots was just like Emily Blunt directing, like not an impressive scene.
And it's one long shot.
Right.
Yeah,
and it's just her, managing some people. And I was like, oh, this is a pretty good oneer. I hope the rest of the movie's like this. And it was.
But you're right. That was nice. Where she goes from person to person and makes decisions and does this and does that. And that really stood out. So that you might be in trouble when a scene like that really stands out over all these other huge, big, over-the-top action scenes.
Right. And Howard, I want to echo your point about the meta-ness of it. I was just seeing, Kiss Kiss Bang Bang or The Nice Guys, and it felt very much like Shane Black light. It just didn't have that edge that Shane Black brings to it, and his sort of meta-ness throughout. And it just made me want a sequel to The Nice Guys, and it wasn't half as clever.
It's interesting you say Shane Black, because one of my statements eventually was going to be is how great this film might have been if Shane Black or the writers of Deadpool had done the screenplay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, allow me to retort, because I feel very differently than the rest of you do about this. The meta thing I appreciated, and I didn't have a problem with it. I love Jackie Chan, so I would never disparage anything that Jackie Chan does, but these are different kinds of stunts than Jackie Chan does, and I enjoyed these very much. I do think that they were shot pretty well. This, to me, seems like it is a 2-hour commercial for the Academy to give the stunt performers an award category. And I thought that they did a pretty effective job at presenting their reason for doing that, because you had fight stunts, you had crash stunts, you had car stunts, you had building stunts, you had jumps, you had falls, you got the whole variety of things. Now, maybe they're not on the newest thing under the sun. I didn't think they were, but I thought they looked solid. I didn't have the problem that Brian had with the editing. I didn't see it being particularly choppy. Plus, there is something else that Howard kind of mentioned, and I think that he's missed it. He talks about it should be more Thin Man. This has got one of the best love story kinds of circumstances in an action film that I've seen. This is not the gratuitous love story that gets stuck in a Shane Black movie. This is one where the whole focus of the story is on the relationship between the stuntman and the director. Yeah. And I really thought that there was a sweet relationship developed in a sincere way, leaving out most of the kinds of BS that you get in a lot of these kinds of movies with the battling Bickersons, so to speak, and instead you got something that was a little bit more based in honest feelings with one another. Plus, you got the stunts. Now,
it was a rom-com disguised as an action movie.
Yes, I think that's a good way of putting it. And I was very entertained by a whole variety of things in it. The meta stuff we'll get into a little bit more in a while. Look, frankly, I'm going to tell you the big secret here that nobody who knows me is going to be surprised by at all. As soon as the Universal logo came up, I loved this movie, because the music playing behind it is from Kiss, and it is playing throughout the movie. There are so many needle drops in this that it's ridiculous, and that's one of the things we'll talk about a little bit later. But I got a kick out of the fact that I Was Made for Loving You became the theme for this movie, and they also recorded a separate version of the theme. Look, is it fan service? Are they slumming by trolling for Kiss fans? Probably, and it worked.
But again, it goes to highlight that the core of this is the love story. Yes. I think that using that as the theme in various ways, right? Because I picked up on it too. I was like, wow, they are using this song in so many different ways. But it really does draw your focus to it's a love story, period.
And that's the way I looked at it. Not to distract from the other things that are going on, but let's talk about the love story first, and then we can get to your criticisms of the plot and the stunts, and then a few other things to talk about. Brian, I didn't hear your views on the love story so much, and Jeanette chimed in a little bit just now. I'm going to come back to her, but what did you think about the relationship between Ryan Gosling and Emily Blunt and the love story in this movie?
I thought it really worked. I thought it was, one of the few things about the movie. Like, I wanted more of it. They were apart for so long in the movie that I felt a little frustrated that they weren't interacting more, and would have loved to have seen them together during a lot of the action scenes later in the movie. And they were in some degree, but I think in the first act, they're together a lot, and you're seeing the rapport, and then the movie sort of coasts after that on that, and you're kind of just hoping that they get back together and are able to work off of each other a little more. But I really liked all the scenes where they're together and playing off each other. They have a lot of chemistry. I mean, they're just, from their brief moment in the Oscars this year, you can see that they just have a easy rapport, and they play off each other and improvise really well with each other. I just wanted more of that.
Howard, did you think that they had good rapport on the screen?
Well, I thought they had rapport, but I think you may have misunderstood my comment about the Thin Man. I also would have liked to have seen more, because in many ways, Emily Blunt doesn't really have very much to do in the movie at all. And so when I say it needs to be more the Thin Man, I wanted to have them figure it all out more together. So I also wanted more. I wanted them to drive the story, but she's just sort of along for the ride. And he's the one that's really the only one driving the story.
Well, she is largely missing from the second act. I'll agree with that.
Exactly.
But I think she's a big part of the first act and the third act.
I think that's a big mistake. And I think that's why that relationship doesn't work in the movie for me the way it does for other people. As I said, I agree that I needed more. If that's what the story is about, then I needed a lot more of Emily Blunt and Ryan Gosling. And I didn't get it. And instead of focused on a story that really wasn't it was interesting enough. It was a great idea. The whole basic concept of the movie is great, but it wasn't told that well. So you have a love story that's barely in the movie and doesn't really drive the main plot line. And then you have a main plot line that is a great idea, but isn't always that well written or that interesting.
Jeanette, against all odds, I think you are my you are my partner in this argument here. So take a look at me now and tell me what you think.
That's very good. I like the two of them together. I think the chemistry was good. They had an ease about it. I bought the relationship, and what I appreciated is that in terms of, if you look at the rom-com aspects of this, we didn't have to see the meet cute, because when we step into this, they've been together, air quotes, kind of they had an ease about them. Was it a fling? Was it not a fling? I mean, they discussed that later on. So it was interesting to see that. I think that I fall into she disappears in the second act, and that's too bad. It would have been nice to see them kind of working on it together. But I think that's where this movie, it maybe gets a little confused, like either buy all in on the rom-com with action in it, or buy all in on the action movie with some romantic scenes in it. It felt like it was trying to do both and then didn't hit either as hard as it could have. I did feel like part of the things that I was a little iffy on was, as much as I liked them together, the scenes of her alone. There is that one scene that we've already talked about where she's directing and making decisions, and that's great. But aside from that, like, this movie hard fails the Bechdel test. I wanted her to maybe have a little more agency on her own, and allowing her to be part of the caper piece of this, where she maybe helps solve the crime or mystery, which wasn't much of a mystery, or whatever. If she was a little more involved in the story instead of just accessorizing his story. But I realize I may be wanting more than what was crafted, so it's a little bit hard to say why that didn't sit well with me. It just, every single scene past her introduction is thinking about him, how much she misses him, how angry she is at him, how much she wants him back. And it's so focused on him. In the meantime, she's directing her first feature movie. We have one cool scene of her. Like, let's get a little more on that. Let's have her figure out some stuff. Let's have her do some stuff. I don't know. And it's weird to want that in a movie that's clearly not about her. But if you're going to introduce her and make her that cool and cast Emily Blunt, who's great at this kind of thing, give her a little bit more to do. But yes, I like the relationship. And again, yes, their chemistry, great. They have such an ease together. At no point did I question their relationship. And I really did like the aspect of, once he has his accident, his withdrawing, and what she says to him is, I wanted so badly to be there for you, that he did not allow that. It was a legitimate reason for them to fall apart, where sometimes in rom-coms that can feel very forced or faked. That felt real, and their reconciliation felt real, and I appreciated that part of their relationship. So I thought both of them were great. I have a little, you know what? I think I have some issues with the execution. There you go.
All right.
I think I agree with Jeanette. I think you've got it down perfectly. I think there's also an added issue in the Bechdel test, or how serious to take her as a director, because everybody keeps talking about this film they're making, and they're saying, oh, you're making this great epic film, and this is really important, and this is great. And I'm going, no, you're making a schlock tempo film. It's not very good. It doesn't look particularly good. On a podcast once, I was talking to someone, and we mentioned that whenever there are films about making films, with rare exception, they're almost never about making good films. So it's hard for me to take seriously whenever they're talking about, oh my God, you're contributing something to the future of cinema, and this is so important, and this is great. And I'm going, no, you're doing a schlock tentpole film. That's
I don't know how. I think maybe you are underestimating the power of a metal storm. That's what I think.
That's it. That's exactly what I was thinking. These are the kinds of films that Hollywood wants to make. They want to make the blockbusters. They want to, and believe me, what's her name who directed No Man Land?
Chloe said no.
Yeah, and then what's the next film she gets is The Eternals. The Eternals, because that's what they really want, which is not a good film. We've already had that discussion, but it's exactly the kind of thing that the studios want. They want the big film. That's what directors would like, also, to have more power and more control and a bigger budget.
But just don't lie to yourself about the kind of film you're making, or make that a part of the joke.
Well, part of the joke in this is that it's a personal story. I mean, she's basically telling her own story, and that's the joke about the movie. It's not that it's a good movie; it's that she's working out her dirty laundry by making this movie that is, big budget and full of, the kind of stuff that you legitimately criticize, being schlock.
Well, I think we may have to disagree to some degree here, because I do agree that she is working out her own personal things. She's doing it not like Bergman does. She does it in a schlock movie, and everybody keeps telling her how important this movie is. And I'm going, well, they're all just lying to you, and you're under a self-deception, and you're lying to yourself. Yeah, you're working out your own thing.
Which is the meta aspect of the movie, because everybody in Hollywood is lying to each other and lying to themselves.
Except if you don't call it out, then it's not meta anymore. You have to call it out. You have to make sure that the audience knows, or it's not.
You don't think the audience has figured this out?
No, actually, I don't. I really seriously doubt that the general audience going in catches on to that.
We'll have to talk about spoilers to have the further discussion on this, and I want to hold off on that for a bit. I'm not sure that the plot is a spoiler territory, because it's a pretty standard kind of plot. Let's talk about that for a couple of minutes. Brian, did you have any thoughts about the story itself, other than the love story, but the driving aspect of the story, the search for the star?
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty one note, I guess. There weren't, to Howard's point, maybe in a Thin Man story there'd be more twists and turns and more of a mystery and a big reveal. And I feel like the reveal, I won't give it away obviously, but was just like, oh, it's that, and now we just deal with the fallout of that. So there was one sort of twist, and that happens pretty early on in the story, and the rest is just, trying to get the guy. So I don't know. I just didn't, because it was so many chases and the conflict was so slight. I just didn't. I was like, oh yeah, well, I kind of assumed that that this is what we were going to do, and the movie has nothing else for us. Okay, great. So it's just all about the action set pieces, which would have been fine if they were, shot and presented in a way that I found engaging, which I just didn't. So unfortunately, that just highlights how slight the story is. So yeah, I would have preferred, to Howard's point, more of a mystery, more of an investigation. I think that would have been more true to the television show. Not that that was a particularly good television show from what I remember. I haven't watched it probably since the 80s. So, but I do remember there being sort of twists and turns and a mystery element to it. And there was usually like one or two big stunts per episode on that show. But it was more about the mystery, if I recall. Maybe I'm misremembering and somebody can correct me. But
I was just going to ask if anybody else had seen the television show, because I lived through that era but never saw the show.
I was aware of it. I don't know that I ever watched it.
Used to be one of those things that was on like, in the afternoon, and I was home from school in the summer, and it's either that or Days of Our Lives, and I'd probably alternate between the two. Yeah, I don't have a huge fondness for it, but I do remember the basic premise of the show. But yeah, it just didn't. There wasn't a lot there. I feel like there's some investigation in the beginning, but after a certain point and you figure out what's going on, then it's all just action scenes, and it's, like I said, just not a lot to grab onto.
Well, I would agree with you that the plot is mostly just a justification to hang a whole bunch of action set pieces on. And if you didn't enjoy the action set pieces, then you're going to be disappointed in the movie. I, on the other hand, of course, enjoyed them. I'm a little glad, for instance, that although the fight sequences do go on for a long time, and there are several chase sequences that continue for a long period of time, that we're not seeing 40 people killed every time the hero steps forward. It's
Sure.
not John Wick, where we're getting blood on the screen constantly. It's more in the spirit of a kind of a television show. We're going to do it with violence, but it's not going to be over-the-top violence. Nobody's reaching in and pulling somebody's heart out or cutting their throat on screen.
Yeah.
I
appreciated that.
We get something that's a little bit more, like people have said, it's very light. And it's designed as an entertainment, and that it's definitely a summer entertainment. Is it schlocky? Well, Howard would say it's schlocky, I'm sure. So, but
I never said it was schlocky. I said the movie within the movie was schlocky.
Yes, and I was just making the presupposition that you would probably identify it as schlocky also. If you do not, I'm happy to hear that opinion also.
I do think that it was the solving of the crime in the center, because it introduces so many interesting side characters. The drug dealer who is at the club at Neon Night. I mean, that's interesting. Stephanie Sue playing the missing star's assistant, like, that was interesting. Having Winston Duke join on some of the, that was interesting. But none of those were enough, and maybe each of those would have been a separate episode of a TV show. I don't know, but while all of that half worked, I wanted all of those to work all the way, and they didn't quite. But yeah, I wanted more from the mystery in the middle. But again, that's where we fall into this. It focused more on the rom-com aspect and less on the mystery, and fine, but didn't go all the way that direction and teased us with pieces of the mystery. And I think, as much as I enjoyed the romantic relationship, you could have maintained it at the level it was presented while still upping the mystery or crime-solving portion of this.
Sure.
I don't know.
I will say that the show, I think he was a bounty hunter.
Yes.
By night, and he was a bounty hunter. So it was a different, bounty that he had to get on every episode. So I don't know if that would have been more interesting or, more awkward. I think it probably would have worked as well. And the mystery is preferable, but the mystery just needed to be a little bit more entangled, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't know that Ryan Gosling's character. Well, I think he'd be capable of playing a bounty hunter type character, but obviously in the context here, the the character that he's playing, Colt Seaver, is supposed to be a little bit more lighthearted, not necessarily, even though he is a tough guy, not presenting himself as a tough guy, not forcing himself into situations, but trying to stay out of them as much as possible, but ending up in them whenever he turns around. As a plot, I thought that was fine, entertaining. One of the things it just occurred to me that we were talking about Emily Blunt missing in that second act. There were two sequences though where she was there that I thought were pretty good, and one of them I think is worth talking about, and that's the split screen sequence, which I enjoyed.
Yeah, I liked it.
And it was,
I liked it.
and it's kind of a nice reference to the movie business as well. So Jeanette, you said you liked it. What was appealing about it to you?
I like the discussion. I like basically everything she said about the reasons for using split screen to enhance the discussion. I was like, yeah, you know what? I see all of that here happening, and I like it.
Especially though,
also
one
her
of the scenes...
acting with the glove, the alien glove hand. I appreciated all of her. Because that takes a level of physicality. Like, she nailed all of that. I thought that was great.
Go ahead, Howard.
Yeah, for me, that was one of the scenes where I went, oh, God, they're trying to be meta, and this is done before and been done much better. As soon as it started, I said, oh, I've seen this scene. It's from the movie Down with Love. And I thought it was done much better in Down with Love. This went on forever. I mean, it's made its point, and it just kept going. I thought it was done much better in the other movie. I didn't find it particularly imaginative or clever. I found it been there, done it. So that's one of the reasons why the movie didn't often work for me. I've seen all this, and they didn't do anything that particularly original or interesting with it.
Brian, are you with Jeanette or Howard on this one?
I'm more leaning toward Jeanette. I thought the moment was cute, but you've seen this sort of split screen conversation, and Doris Day, Rock Hudson comedies are indiscreet with Ingrid Bergman and Cary Grant, and it worked then and it works now. It was fine. The meta aspect of it didn't really add a lot to it for me, but I was not paying attention to the meta aspect, or not really interested in the meta aspect, and more just in their chemistry on the phone, and that worked for me. So I thought it was a cute moment, but it was not like a revelatory, meta conceit that I could tell that some people in the audience liked that moment and thought it was really funny. I wasn't laughing at that. I was just enjoying the charm between them.
Yeah, well, I enjoyed the charm between them, and I agree that it has been done before. I did like Jeanette, I like the idea that what we're getting here is a little bit of an explanation about why you would do a split screen in the first place, while simultaneously doing the very thing that you're talking about. I appreciated that, and I like the fact that it ties into the movie making process, which I think they did several times. Now, we know that movies are not made in the easy process that sometimes gets illustrated in a film like this, but there are little moments where people make decisions, and this is one of those places where you say, oh, here's how people think it out. It's a little bit of brainstorming, and I like the fact that the brainstorming ends before he even knows that it's done. I thought that was kind of funny. So I think there's some charm to it, as well as illustrating this idea about it being about making a movie and putting that in the movie itself.
I think that aspect, the whole idea of showing people what goes into making a movie, is actually I appreciate the attempt, but I think it was maybe the thing that disappointed me most about this. There were a lot of stunts in the film that were like a movie's version of a stunt, like a Hollywood movie's version of showing you what a stunt is. When Ryan Gosling is set on fire at one point, they're not slathering him up with, flame retardant gel and then setting him on fire. They're just setting him on fire. So they're not really showing you how stunts are done. They're not showing the weeks of choreography that go into these stunts. They're saying, hey, let's improvise on the set and just attach some wires to you and we'll just improvise. That's not really how stunts are done. I mean, it takes a lot of planning and coordination to make sure that you're doing the stunts safely. And they want to make it, fast paced and not show all that work because that's not really attractive, but they're not really, in terms of the argument that they're making for the Academy to create a category for this, they're omitting a lot of the work that goes into being a stunt performer. And I just felt like it was a very superficial way of showing what a stunt person does or what goes into filmmaking, that it's all haphazard. And for this kind of huge, mega budget production, they would probably not be improvising a lot on the set, because being on set every day is costing them hundreds of thousands of dollars. And having all those people around, is just draining the bank. So, yeah, I think that aspect of it, and that kind of goes into the whole metal storm of it all, which is, if you want to showcase really great stunts going into a movie and you're in Australia, maybe do something like Mad Max, where you're actually doing a lot of physical stunts and there isn't a lot of CGI. But it seemed like that this movie was just that they were making in the film was full of CGI, and the stunts were pretty negligible. And much like The Fall Guy, there's just a lot of CGI that needs to go into these stunts, and so it doesn't showcase the stunts very well.
Can you give me an example of something that you think where the CGI that is used undermines the stunt that's being performed?
In The Fall Guy or the film within the film?
Either.
I'd say in the third act, there's a helicopter that shows up, and they're using a kind of digital all computerized camera to kind of move the camera around the space. So there are these artificial, CGI movements that are kind of moving around the helicopter, for instance, when Ryan Gosling is on the helicopter, and they're just moving artificially through these kind of, Winston Duke is fighting with some people on the ground, and Ryan Gosling's up in the camera, and Emily Blunt is in her control room, and they're digitally moving between those moments. Not only that, but then there's a lot of explosions. Some of them look real, some of them look like they're not real, and it just felt all sort of plastic to me. Even though individual moments might feature some, like Ryan Gosling really doing something, the way that it's filmed is just not showcasing that in a way, because everything around it looks sort of, just fake. Like the best stunt in the movie is a car jump, and I think that looks great. But then everything around it is just sort of, this digital frame that's sort of moving around in ways that a normal camera wouldn't, unless it's on a drone. But I don't think these were drone shots. So it just had this plastic quality that I think robbed the grounded physicality of a stunt person's work from being conveyed to the audience.
All right.
Yeah, I didn't catch that. That's interesting. I thought the chase sequences, in particular, like the truck with the thing on the back, was well done. I thought that all the hand-to-hand sequences in the various apartments and in the club were good. I liked, honestly, which is weird, I liked Emily Blunt's fight with him in the alien suit when he surprised her. I thought she did a great job there. A lot of the action stuff on the last end there were super fun, like the little pieces on the ground. And that initial stunt when he shows up back thinking she wants him there and she didn't want him there, and the car roll there, that was well done. So I enjoyed a lot of them throughout. The action sequences I thought were engaging.
You brought up the fight sequence in the trailer with Emily Blunt and Ryan Gosling, who's in the alien costume. And I think I missed something because I couldn't figure out why she was fighting in the first place. I mean, someone comes up and taps her on the shoulder. She turns around. It's someone in a costume from the movie. And instead of saying, yes, can I help you? She just starts beating the shit out of him.
Well, he does put his hand over her mouth Like,
Yeah,
he doesn't want her to call out
He grabs her.
and so it's going to startle you.
Okay.
It's not just a
Oh,
tap on the
100%.
shoulder.
I just missed that because I was trying to figure out why she's engaged in this, and I missed that. So thanks for that.
Yeah, grab me from behind without telling me, and see how quickly you receive a knee to the groin.
Having just recently gone to the Universal Studios tour and enjoyed the Waterworld stunt show, which replaced the
Every
Miami
time.
Vice stunt show. Go ahead,
But
Jeanette.
that Waterworld show, so good every time, delivers every time. People
Absolutely.
love that show who do not know there's a Waterworld movie.
Yes, it's you watch that and you see these people doing the stunts that they do in that show, and you think they do this 4 or 5 times a day, and it's incredible what they're doing. And they're doing things that we see in the movie. In this particular case, you've got the boat chase and the jump and some fire effects that are going
60-foot
on.
firefall.
Yeah, and I think it works really well that we've got that connection that goes on because he's got that jacket that he's been wearing, and the implication is that that's kind of where he met Emily Blunt's character, because it sounds to me like at one point like she was also a stunt person in the show.
Can I ask, are we to infer that he got that jacket from the Miami Vice TV show?
No,
or
not
from
the
the
TV
Miami
show.
Vice movie? Because there's no way that we're supposed to believe he's that old.
No, I think it's supposed to be from the Universal show at the theme park.
But even so, Gosling is 43, so he would have been like 15 when that ended, because that show ended in like 95. So it just wouldn't, the math doesn't work out. He wouldn't have been working, or maybe this takes place in.
I assumed it was the movie, the terrible, which we can talk about later. The
Colin Farrell.
Sure.
Yes.
Was it Jamie
I
Foxx was in that?
I think it had the TV logo on his jacket.
Okay, it did, yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, he would have been, the show ended in what, 90, I think. So he would have been, 10 doing stunts on that, or if he was in the stunt show, it would have been 15 at latest. So that the math just didn't work out. Or he's 55 in the movie or something like that.
I'll buy it. There's a lot of this movie where I'm just like, I'll buy it. I will say that it just kind of circling back to talk about the cast, like, I am one of those people with Ryan Gosling in particular does nothing for me. I don't find him, I just don't care for him in general. I have trouble buying him in action movies. This movie I bought, and I think it's because of the layer of charm added on top of it, and that he's not trying to be a hardcore action star. He's a stunt guy working, and so the stuff that he's capable of doing comes along with his job. And so I found this Ryan Gosling performance more enjoyable than other Ryan Gosling performances I've seen.
Can I ask Jeanette what you thought of The Nice Guys?
I did not see The Nice Guys. I started it and was like, nope, this is not for me.
Sure.
Shame on you.
Sometimes you have to make those decisions, and I got to tell you, The Nice Guys is one of my favorite films of the last decade, and I'm so disappointed that there wasn't a follow-up film. And I think Gosling's character in that could easily be the same kind of character that we've got here. He's got a level of charm, and for somebody who is a stunt guy, a little bit of klutziness that goes along with it, which all works out in that movie. And in this one, of course, it's much more about his talent and ability that it works out, because he is a seasoned stunt performer. Brian, I stopped doing the math on the Miami Vice thing immediately. I just said, I know that can't work. But but I did assume it was the stunt show rather than the TV show itself, because that would really have been a stretch of the imagination. I mentioned the needle drops in the movie earlier, and being a Kiss fan, I Was Made for Lovin' You is used throughout the film, and it's practically, the score's theme in the movie in several spots. There were some other songs that got used as well, and I'm going to warn people now, we are probably in spoiler territory on a couple of these things. So if you are trying to see this movie without having too much revealed to you, turn off the podcast now, come back after you've seen the movie, and enjoy our discussion of what comes. The first one I wanted to talk about was, the biggest recording star in the world right now, Taylor Swift.
A very appropriate use of a Taylor Swift song, executed very well.
Yeah, I was going to say, this movie, I went with my daughter, who has several moments where she appears in the Taylor Swift movie, by the way, because she was at that
Oh, really?
she was at that concert, and you can see her in the audience 2 or 3 times. If you know where to look, you'll never know
That's
unless
amazing.
you were looking. Yeah, that's fun, that kind of thing. But she's a big Taylor Swift fan, although she hasn't been a fan of her last 4 albums, so I think that may be rapidly disappearing. But when that song came up, I thought she was going to bust a gut, and I laughed as well. So between the two of us, the Taylor Swift song and the Kiss song, they were hooking us in.
Boy, they got you guys. They got you.
But there are others as well. I liked the AC/DC song for the titles. I think that works perfectly with the car chase that they're doing. Well, not a car chase, but the stunt where he's driving the car through the garage there. I appreciated that, and I thought the needle drop there was good. And then, of course, later on we have the Phil Collins song.
Very well used.
And I think Emily Blunt nails it.
I don't know if this counts as a needle drop, but the use of the $6 Million Man sound effect?
Yes, I like that too.
Why?
Well, that's the one.
You know what? Let me change up my reaction to that. Just be like, why not?
Yeah, why not? That's it. Because they're doing those little Easter eggs throughout the film for Lee Majors, who, by the way, also appears if you don't stick around for the mid-title credit sequence. You're going to miss that. Not that that's that important, although there is a little stinger at the end that I think matters, and I think that it was a lot of fun, and it's integrated into the end of the film pretty well. Yes, and Heather Thomas is there as well. So we're going to get those kinds of references throughout the film. Were there any other things like that you either were irritated by or appreciated in the movie?
I'm a bit of a neophyte when it comes to Taylor Swift. So to be honest, I didn't even recognize the song, and I gathered that it was probably Taylor Swift, given that like half the audience in my screening started kind of like singing along with it. So I was just like, okay, I'm out of touch. I'm very out of touch when it comes to new music, admittedly. So I thought it worked. It was fine. I didn't really, I don't know, for some reason I didn't note a lot of the needle drops. I recognized the Kiss in the beginning, and I recognized the Phil Collins, and they worked fine. And I wasn't like, there wasn't a moment though where I was like, oh, this is an outstanding moment in use of this song. But maybe that's because I'm just out of touch or something. So.
Well, the Kiss song is 45 years old.
Right.
The Phil Collins song is 40 years old. The AC/DC song is at least 40 years old, and the Taylor Swift song, I think that's 10 years old at this point. So it's not like it's brand new music that's being dropped in here. It's something. It's all old school, which seems to be fitting with the old school
kind of the
vibe of the movie, which is one of the things that to me added the charm to the film that made it so appealing to me. Obviously, not to everybody.
Ask you this. Along those lines, and I don't know the answer to this. Who's the target audience for this? Is it just everybody, summer movie, tentpole, popcorn, everybody come see this, or does it have a target audience? Are they aiming for Ryan Gosling fans? Are they aiming for action fans? Are they aiming for rom-com fans? Or is it just a summer movie like everybody come see it?
I think they're going for the whole 4-quadrant aspect of it. Yeah, they're going, Fall Guy is an older property, so we're getting, the older demographic. We're getting action junkies. We're getting, a little bit of love in there for from a Hollywood studio their perspective for the ladies, and it's PG-13 and has aliens in it, and so for the kids. So I think it's engineered in that way, in the sense that it's trying to please everyone, and in my opinion doesn't do any one of those things like very well. And I feel like if they had just picked one and went with it, the whole notion of a 4-quadrant film would have been unnecessary, because it would have just been a good movie. They could have just done a Fall Guy and really focused on the romantic comedy, and it would have been much better, I think. But I feel maybe, I'm glad you brought that up, because now that I think about it, it's like it feels like it's just spread thin because they're trying to please everyone.
Does anybody know how well it's doing at the box office?
Not very.
It's underperforming. It's doing okay, but it's not doing what would have been expected.
And maybe Brian may have hit it right as to why it may not be, though it's always very difficult to tell, especially this early, why. It may have been trying to please everybody, and in doing so maybe didn't really please enough.
Yeah, well, I think that's obviously, it's when you ask the question, who is this film for? This is for the summer crowd. This is a film that's engineered to play in the summer, and maybe they got it out a little early, but I think
that's fair.
The PG-13 rating is a good indicator that they want as wide a crowd as possible. The Fall Guy is not a property that I don't think anybody thinks is going to draw in a lot of fans. It's just something that there might be a few people who are nostalgic about, but they like the concept of it. And the stunts, of course, which have come in for some criticism here from some of us, are probably the biggest draw in the movie, and that's what people want to see in the movie. Now, how it's going to stand up when we're talking about CGI interfering with the stunts, I'm a little worried about Furiosa in a couple of weeks, because I've seen some of the stuff in the trailers that makes me fear like, well, wait a second, are we going to reverse everything that we accomplished with Fury Road? I'm a little worried about that, but I didn't see that as big a problem in this particular movie.
Can we, if we're down to the reason I enjoy the third act, because it felt like it finally let go and was just doing all the fun stuff. There's two things I cast things. Aaron Taylor Johnson, that dude keeps surprising me. Like, every time he pops up, I'm like, ugh, this guy. And then he wins me over every time. Like, he's doing great. I love it. Wonderful. Yeah. In Tenet, like, that dude stole half a Tenet for me. And here, it's a throwaway role that he does a really good job at and makes it more interesting than it could have been.
Oh, his McConaughey impression at the
right
end
there
was brilliant.
Yes. Flawless. Loved that so much. And then the main God, Jason Momoa. Like, here's a dude who understood the assignment. They were like, here, he kind of do. He was like, no, I got it. I know what I'm doing. Everybody stand back. And I appreciated it. Loved it. Made the end very fun.
And the meta references to Dune, I think, are also pretty cool.
Yes.
Yeah.
You get some of the theme song, you've got the setting, and then Momoa shows up and you go, yeah, okay, nothing subtle about that.
Like, I get it.
Which Howard is, I think,
I understand.
They'll get it. They'll get the idea that this is supposed to be self-referential.
Which, to me, that's why, to come back to this discussion about, like, everyone talking about Metal Storm being so important, people sure say that about Dune, so I was like, yeah, I get it. They're going to say that.
All right, so we've talked about the love story and the plot and the stunts and the music, a little bit about the humor. Let's maybe finish up our discussion with the humor. The tone of the movie is, slight for the most part, although there are some, tough guys and the usual beatings that are impossible to survive, but everybody just gets up from them afterwards. Holy criminy, I'm sorry. I get punched one time by any of those people, I'm out for a week without even thinking about it.
So with those people.
Yeah, it's the typical movie kind of thing, and very few indicators that people have been beaten to near an inch in their life. But I think for the most part, there's a lot of humor in the film, and it's underplayed for the most part. It's not really, it's not slapstick, and it's certainly not dinner talk, dinner table elegance. But there are, you know, Ryan Gosling underplays a whole bunch of scenes where he's just got commentary that's running through there, and Emily Blunt is reacting in ways that really reflect, human beings being honest in the situation. We haven't mentioned at all Hannah Waddingham,
Oh yes,
who
a
is
good villain.
yes, look, she's the producer of the movie. She's going to fix everything. You know right away. Well, that's not going to be going real well. Let's give that away early on. But I thought she was funny. She was the one that was maybe the most over the top being played comically, and I still think it worked. Drowning herself in the Diet Coke as I'm finishing my Coke Zero right here.
Yeah, I mean, I thought the movie was amusing. I didn't find that there were a lot of jokes, though. It kind of reminded me of like a Joss Whedon Marvel movie where there's not necessarily jokes. It's just kind of a glib tone, or like a light tone to it, where and I found it very amusing. I smiled, but I don't know that I was like laughing out loud because of a single joke. And I feel that a lot of Hollywood movies these days are sort of employing that strategy where it's easier to just kind of have a lighthearted tone than it is to write actual jokes. But I guess certain lines, could be interpreted as jokes, but I don't know. I didn't find myself laughing out loud. I just had a smile on my face throughout, which makes it a little less memorable, I guess, if there aren't a whole lot of hearty laughs.
For me, the script was especially the weak spot. I didn't find it to be witty or particularly funny or humorous at all. And I kept thinking, oh, if only Shane Black had written the script. Oh, if only the people from Deadpool had written the script, it would really soar. And yeah, they just didn't quite do it for me.
Well, that's because it's a PG-13 film. If it was written by Shane Black or the guys from Deadpool, it would be R-rated and wouldn't be reaching that four-quadrant audience that we're looking for in the summertime.
No, that's not how the way it works. I'd have to disagree strongly with that. Once the producers, once you write the script, the producers would come in and say, we have to work on this to make it PG-13.
Right.
Then Shane Black or the people for Deadpool would say, fine, or they would say no and they'd get another writer. But
I think that's what they did. They said no and got other writers.
I don't think Shane Black and the people from Deadpool are such poor writers that the only way they can get humor and wit is by writing a R-rated movie. I think they're much more talented than that.
Well, I didn't mean to imply that they were not talented. I was merely suggesting that they're not working in their milieu here.
I think this is exactly I don't think you can get more milieu or whatever you can for them than this. This is exactly the perfect thing for them to do.
Well, we're dealing with that's okay. No, we're dealing with different characters, and like I said, I think that this is, it's designed to be a particular kind of film, and I didn't look at the writers and check out their credentials, so maybe I should do that just so that we can get a sense of what's going on here.
It was Drew Pearce. I think he's only written one screenplay. He's been kind of
Iron Man 3, which is the Shane Black film.
Right.
So there's an interesting cross-reference there.
Yeah, otherwise, he's done some like Fast and Furious and directed, what was that movie? Hotel Artemis.
Yeah, which I didn't see. I don't know anything about.
It was kind of a
it was
pulpy
uneven.
Yeah, to say the least. Yeah, I haven't really. I mean, if he contributed to Iron Man 3, great, but I would say that feels like a Shane Black property, and he's maybe trying to replicate that here.
That may very well be what we're getting. Is that echo of the Shane Black influence there.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's close it up here with some final thoughts. Howard, you've made it plain what your feelings are, but do you have a way of quickly summarizing your opinion?
It was a great idea. The basic concept of the plot, though it falls apart by the end, brilliantly Hitchcockian. And if they were able to make the plot work stronger, and I might not even have cared that the plot doesn't make a lot of sense by the time it's over, if the rest of the film had worked for me. I don't think it achieves what it's trying to do. I think that's my big problem. It's trying to do something and it thinks it's original and it thinks it's achieving something, and I'm going, no, you're not really achieving anything that you think you're achieving.
Well, if this was the 80s and we were putting together our newspaper ad for the movie, your phrase "brilliantly Hitchcockian" would be in the quote, and everything else would be ignored. Brian, how about you?
I think, Richard, you brought up Furiosa and Mad Max Fury Road, and I will say that both of those movies have CGI in them. Fury Road has a ton of CGI in it. There are sequences that don't, and that's why it's so impressive. But, there are things like the storm that have CGI in it. And there are things in Furiosa, just from the trailer, that look like they have a lot of CGI in it. The difference, I think, and the thing that I get hung up on with this is that those movies are not saying, let's create a stunt category for the Academy Awards and let's make that argument in our film. And that's sort of the extra textual conceit of our movie, is to convince the Academy that stunts are important and these stunt workers are doing amazing things. I think that argument could be made with Mad Max Fury Road, sure. But it's not setting out to do that. So I don't get bothered by the CGI in those movies. Not that I've seen Furiosa yet. But I get bothered because it's not form follows function in The Fall Guy. So that aspect really nags at me, just from like an aesthetic thesis point of view. And then, just everything else is so, like I said, slight, and it just didn't leave a huge impression on me. I think the power of a movie is how much you think about it afterward, and I just didn't. I sat down to write a review. I was like, just what did I watch? Good thing I took notes, because I think it just all evaporated from my mind so quickly afterward that, and it was entertaining during it, but I just didn't leave much of an impression on me.
All right, and Jeanette?
Yeah, I thought it was fine. Hey, listen, they're not all going to be superstars. This was a good, reliable beginning of the summer popcorn flick. I enjoyed it. By the end, had a good time. I appreciate them putting footage of the actual stunt performers doing the actual stunts of the movie over the end credits. I thought that was necessary and really well placed. And, I thought it was fun. I don't think it was trying to reinvent the wheel. I think it was trying to take what has been done over and over again and been overlooked by the Academy and other places and be like, here, this is, and maybe it didn't do as well as it wanted to with that of like, this is what goes into that, let's elevate that kind of operation. And I think it is a love letter to the stunt community. It just maybe is written nearly illegibly. But it is, it's fun enough. I think everyone, go see it. It's fine. It's not going to hurt you. It's perfectly entertaining. There's some great dog sequences. Like there's a dog who's wonderful, and the dog makes it through just fine. So it's fine.
You always need a bit with the dog.
Richard, if you were back in the 80s putting out the advertisement, would you put Jeanette's comment, "It's not going to hurt you."
It's not going to hurt
You know what?
Harmless.
That would probably be on the VHS box.
Yeah.
Harmless fun.
That's it. Sell it the way it plays. Well,
manage your expectations. Go in not expecting anything. You'll be pleasantly surprised.
yeah. And unlike Brian, I did think about the movie quite a bit. I thought about the love story. I thought about the stunts. I thought about the meta elements of it. I'm anxious to talk about the music because of my personal fandom, and I love the dog. Like I said, I think the relationship between the two stars plays very well on the screen. So I was, strongly attracted to what was going on here. It may not be at the top 10 on my list, but it's definitely made me in the top 10 most entertaining films of the year. I was very entertained. Is it substantive? No, it's not substantive at all. Does it work? I think it works pretty darn well. And I hope I'm not giving away too much here. I've seen it twice, and I enjoyed it both times. So I laughed at a lot of the things. I sucked in my breath in that opening montage of stunts, especially with the guy rolling down the cliff. That hurt just watching it, and I thought that set the tone for a lot of what we were getting. But everybody's responded to it a little bit differently. Hopefully, you guys will make your own decisions when you see the movie. We're going to take a brief break here to hear from a fellow Lamb Podcasting Network show, and then we're coming back for our exit question of the week.
Hey Jay, can I ask you a question?
Sure, Mark. Far away.
How come Carter's always sliding around in Deep Blue Sea?
Wow.
And how come Preacher has a bird in the kitchen?
I think...
Should Janice have won an Oscar for all that exposition?
Yeah, I mean...
Who do the sharks hate the most? How far did Jim travel underwater? Why do they keep calling Brenda Tower?
Mark, please, we've already covered all of these topics and many, many more on Deep Blue Sea, the podcast.
You mean the podcast where we analyze Rennie Harlin's 1999 masterpiece, Deep Blue Sea, chapter by chapter?
Exactly! Find it everywhere podcasts can be found.
It's time for the exit question of the week. We're finishing up our discussion of The Fall Guy with a discussion about the format that it comes from. The Fall Guy is based on a 1980s television show. Lee Majors was the star of that show. He plays a stunt guy who becomes a bounty hunter. And by the way, I thought that there was a little bit of a nice meta reference to the fact that in this film, the Fall Guy is also the fall guy of the story. He's the schlub that they're trying to blame for the crime. So we get a little double entendre meaning there. But for our exit question this week, it was real straightforward. What are the best and worst cinematic adaptions of a TV property? And Howard, we're going to start with you. What have you seen in the movie theater that came originally from TV that you thought was really good? And what have you seen that you said, I not only would I not watch that again, I wouldn't watch it on TV for free?
I think I went over, Wikipedia, of course, has a nice list of television shows that have been turned into movies, so that helped a lot. For me, I think the one, and nothing else comes close except maybe one franchise. South Park, bigger, what is it? Bigger, uncut?
Longer and uncut.
Yeah. That is, not only is it one of the best animated films, it's also one of the best musical films. It's brilliant. It's absolutely hysterical. And I think that's the one I'd have to go for.
So that's on the good side. Have you got something that falls on the wrong side of the coin?
The problem I had with that is generally if a movie gets really terrible reviews, I don't see it. So I'm going all these adaptations and going, well, I didn't see that. I got terrible reviews. I didn't see that. Got terrible reviews. I think. And
you didn't see the Beverly Hillbillies?
No. I did think I saw The Dark Shadows with Johnny Depp, and that was pretty bad.
That was a little rough, yes.
Yeah.
All right. We'll give you The Dark Shadows as your worst.
Well, actually, just Dark Shadows. I don't know where I got the from, but yeah.
You're giving it a little more gravitas.
Yes.
The Dark Shadow.
The Dark Shadows.
It still couldn't save that movie.
Yeah.
All right. Brian, how about you?
There's quite a few really good ones. Do you want me to stick to just one?
No, you can pick a 2 or 3 if you like.
Okay.
We're flexible here.
Sure. So I will say 2 by Brian De Palma, Mission Impossible and The Untouchables, I think are outstanding films. The first Mission Impossible. They capture the essence of the show and they elevate it with very cinematic sequences that I think now at this point, really transcend the source material, the TV source material. And then maybe a little obscure one. I don't know how obscure it is, but there's a British show called The Thick of It, and they made a film called In the Loop that had the characters from The Thick of It. And it's wonderful. It's so funny. It's full of incredibly quotable lines. A great performance from really everyone involved. I highly recommend people check that out. It's one of my favorite comedies.
I'm going to find the link for our movie of the month. We did that 6 years ago, I think, as a movie of the month.
Okay, great. It's outstanding, and The Thick of It is a really great show too. So check that out, and it kind of feeds right into the movie. So.
All right. How about on the negative side?
Oh boy, there's so many. Unlike Howard, I do see movies even if they get bad reviews, just to I'm reviewing them usually, so I've got to develop my own opinion. But one recent one that I watched and chose not to review because I just didn't have anything nice to say and didn't want to be mean was The Munsters, the Rob Zombie movie. It's just it's unwatchable. It's so bad. I was speechless. Didn't care about anything that was happening. I thought every performance, every thing that was happening was awful. Some of the production design looked nice, but oh man, that thing was unbelievably bad. And I think it came out last year on Netflix.
That's not even the first adaptation of the Munsters movie,
Right.
a Munster show. They had either 1 or 2 at the time the show was on. Yeah,
With
which
the
were
original
probably
cast, though,
better.
right?
Yeah, and they were probably better than the Rob Zombie one.
Well, it sounds like
sure,
they had
yeah.
to be,
Yeah.
from the way Brian's described it. Anything else you want to toss on the fire?
Maybe Aeon Flux. I remember being incredibly disappointed with that.
Yes.
I really loved the what was it, Liquid TV on MTV in the 90s, that cartoon. A really fascinating, obscure sci-fi story that they just turned into this nothing of a movie that I know that the studio took it away from Karen Kusama, who directed it, and Charlize Theron produced it and really wanted to make something different, and they just made something that was very boilerplate and dull, and took a really good property and just, I don't know, neutered it, I guess. But yeah,
I always thought making a movie of that was really odd because one of the selling points of the show is that she dies at the end of each one, and then they just make another one as if she never died,
right.
which I thought was one of the great things about it.
And she doesn't even die at the end of the movie, so
Yeah. So what was the point? Yeah.
Wasn't Martin Zokas the villain in that? Like, that's a dude who pops up in a lot of stuff randomly.
Yeah. I seem to remember the cast being pretty good. I mean, they spent a lot of money on it, but it just what an empty nothing of a
I think
movie.
Sophie Okonedo as well. Yeah, that was.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, you're switching forms, and I think that you automatically put yourself in a hole when you're trying to take something that is offbeat, animated, futuristic, sci-fi, and turn it into something. It's a tough pull to get something right, and obviously they didn't. At least in your point of view, I never saw that one. I saw the original, the MTV sequences, the Liquid television thing, but I never saw Charlize Theron movie. So I won't pass judgment on it. I'll let you do that. Jeanette, what positive judgment are you going to make?
The Untouchables for sure. I think some of the original series Star Trek movies. 2, I'm partial to 4. I don't know if that counts because it's kind of the same cast, so I don't know if you want to add that in there. The Mask of Zorro, like the original Disney Zorro TV show from the 30s, 40s, is fine, but the Antonio Banderas.
30s or 40s? If it's an original TV show, it can't be that. Oh, please. Oh, I'm dying
That's
here.
the 50s,
Because
okay.
I saw it when it was originally on TV, and I'm not that old.
The Antonio Banderas and Catherine Zeta-Jones movie, like now looking back, there's some question marks in it, but boy, I found it really fun at the time. And I think one of my favorite movies of all time, The Fugitive, I think was great and super entertaining. And then for the bad ones, I have a list. And with all due respect to Winston Duke, I think I'm going to start for the Spencer for Hire, The Spencer Confidential with Mark Wahlberg was not good. And can we stop with Mark Wahlberg already? Let's just not anymore. Let's just not.
I second that.
Yeah, just no thank you. And the Miami Vice, we were talking about that, like that movie. And I know it was Michael Mann saying like, oh, but this is what I really wanted the show to be. And I feel like audiences in general were like, but this is not what we want. That movie was not great. And the A-Team movie with, Liam Neeson and Bradley Cooper and Shelter Copley and Quentin, I love the original A-Team show, and that was not great. I tried to stick within the same, 80s TV shows, and then the Mod Squad movie still holds, and the movie from 1999 with Claire Danes, Giovanni Ribisi, and Omar Epps, easily one of the worst movies I've ever seen, to the point where that was the one I had to look up to see if I was misremembering it, because it was so bad I blocked almost all of it from my memory. Could not remember. All I remembered was Omar Epps. I couldn't remember who else was in it. It was so bad. So those are my worst ones.
Well, you put the Mod Squad on your worst. I have it on my worst as well. I think I saw it once and completely forgot everything about it. When you just mentioned who was in it, I said, Claire Danes, that's right, she was in it, and I don't remember anybody else. You mentioned the first film that came to mind when I got to my best list, and that's The Fugitive, which I think is, the class of the films that we're talking about here. It was an excellent adaptation of a property. The follow-up is good, but I don't know that I would give it the same kind of credit. And others have mentioned Mission Impossible and The Untouchables. The Mission Impossible series, by the way, I continue to maintain that Lalo Schifrin is responsible for half of their success, because that theme is enough to pull people in, even if the movie isn't good. And I just think that the movies have generally been good, so that helps a lot. The one that nobody's mentioned that I think I would like to add to the list are the Addams Family's movies with Raul Julia and Angelica Houston, which I thought did a very good job. Yeah, I think they did.
Especially Addams Family Values.
Yeah, I think they did a good job adapting the concept and making it funny and creepy, and using the technology and the visuals of the time very effectively. And there's nothing to be embarrassed about those.
Thanksgiving play is worth the price of admission alone.
And then just a couple of the worst ones. I know that Howard will never have seen a couple of these because they got terrible reviews, and Brian probably hasn't seen them because they're really old. McHale's Navy.
Oh, I've seen that.
Oh, there you go.
Bad.
I only saw McHale's Navy because Bruce Campbell is in it briefly, and then The Wild Wild West, which is execrable.
I would like to
That was a rough experience.
add one, and it's a franchise, and it's the Naked Gun series.
You're putting that on a positive list, right? Please?
Right.
Okay, yes.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I wasn't sure.
Are we excited about the upcoming new one with Liam Neeson?
We'll give it a chance.
Is he still alive?
Yes.
I guess for some reason I thought maybe he finally died. Uh, so I don't know. We'll have to wait and see.
All right. Well, that's been our show this
On
week.
that note.
Yes. On that note, hopefully Liam Neeson doesn't die before this gets posted, because then it would be
God.
really awkward.
I'm sorry. Did I misunderstand you? Did you say it's coming out with Liam Neeson? I thought you said Leslie Nielsen.
No, Leslie Nielsen is dead. Liam
I misunderstood you.
Liam Neeson is going to replace Leslie Nielsen. And that won't be confusing
Which,
at all, will
is
it?
impossible. No one can replace him. Secondly, Liam Neeson is not capable of that.
But I misunderstood. You said Liam Neeson, and I heard Leslie Nielsen. So that's why I said, I thought he was dead. Well, I was right. He is dead. So.
So from that confusion, we're going to call it a show, but I want to give everybody a chance to promote what they are working on right now. So, Howard, let's start with you. What's coming up on Pop Art?
Well, I finally, I've been so far behind. Oh, poor me. Let's hear the violins going, but hopefully tomorrow, Monday, I will have the next episode. It's with the Vern, and it's about the movies we paired were May, December, and A Dream of Passion. They're both movies about actors who find a real person to research in order to help them create their character. The one still up, of course, is with you, Richard Ghost, and Truly Madly Deeply, about people who are visited by loved ones after death and won't go away whether you want them to or not. And then the only other one next I've scheduled is with Todd Leaving Now, which is with the fantastic Mr. Fox and Straight Time, both about ex-cons who are trying to go straight but don't quite make it. And then I have to start recording some again, because that's how far things gotten. That's how things have been going lately.
All of us are a little bit of out of date. Well, I shouldn't say that. Jeanette's never out of date. She's always fresh. Jeanette, what fresh thing do you have on your site?
Oh, my site is out of date, but I hope to have reviews. And you know what it is? I'm trying to write them shorter so that it's easier to get them done. So I'm working on that. I'm trying to change my format around. But yeah, you can check out what's there over at jwardadventures.blogspot.com, and I'm working on getting more up to date and looking forward to summer movie season. I think yeah.
Excellent. Brian, have you got something that we should be turning our eyes or ears toward?
Yeah. Lately, I've been really entrenched in Bertrand Bonello's films. His new movie, The Beast, came out last month, and so I'm doing a retrospective of his work, starting with Coma, the movie that he released in 2022, and then going back through Zombie Child. I'm going to write kind of a scholarly essay about Nocturama, and then St. Vincent, House of Pleasures, or not St. Vincent, excuse me, St. Laurent, House of Pleasures, and The Pornographer. So those should be very heady reviews.
Yeah, I love Nocturama. We covered that on Pop Art. We actually did it with Dawn of the Dead.
Oh, I
about
can see
people,
that.
trapped in a mall.
Yeah. So those will be, some of them will be on my main site, Deep Focus Review, and then some of them will be on my Patreon, which is patreon.com/deepfocusreview.
All right, and we'll get all of those in the notes, of course, so people can find those things. On my site, I still have things to catch up with. I've got 4 or 5 films that I need to put reviews together for, including today's film. That will be going up sometime this week, and as will my summary of my visit to the TCM Film Festival, where I saw 10 films at least, and I haven't put up reviews of any of them. Shame on me. I've got to catch up. Oh, I'm so far behind. But this has been our fun show for the day. It's people have different opinions about the movie. That's perfectly fine. I feel like lighting a few of you on fire 3 or 4 times, but that's just me. We'll catch y'all next time on the Lambcast. Thanks, everybody.
You've been listening to the Lambcast. If you have an idea for a show or would like to join us on the Lambcast, contact us at largeassmovieblogs.com.
Find us on Facebook, just search for Lambcast, or on X, formerly Twitter, at Lambcast. And you can find us on YouTube as well. The Lamb site can be found at largeassmovieblogs.com. We'd also love it if you would leave a review on iTunes.